It's been a good day today at the market. I sold quite a few bottles, certainly enough to get me and Josh and Daniel through this month. Well, it's good quality oil, you see. It smells gorgeous, difficult to resist. And just look how much is left. Yes, the future is looking pretty good for me and the boys. You wouldn't think so with Daniel sometimes. He's getting to that age now when helping Mum isn't as exciting as it used to be. Josh is starting to get on his nerves too. Well, that's okay. He can be moody if he wants. He can be whatever he likes. He's here, isn't he? Him and Josh, my boys, my beautiful boys. I was so close to losing them. You see, 6 months ago, life was very different. 6 months ago, I was in the depths of despair. It was the worst possible situation. My poor husband, Obadiah, died a few months earlier, leaving a large debt dating back to when there was a famine, and the man who'd loaned him the money wanted it back. I was very poor, and I'd absolutely no way of repaying him, which meant he was going to take my 2 boys. Daniel and Josh, he was going to take them away from me, to be his slaves. How can a man like that sleep at night? So I was desperate. Where was I going to get the money from? We had nothing. The boys didn't really understand what was going on. They just knew that we were in trouble. Well, I was in tears the whole time. How I missed Obadiah. I was so angry with God for taking him from me. He was so young. And then I remembered Elisha. I'm not sure why. His name just came into my head as I was crying in my bed one night. Obadiah adored this man. He was a holy man, a prophet. Obadiah had been training to be a priest when he died, and he was learning so much from Elisha. Yeah, I met him a couple of times, and he seemed so kind and so wise. Maybe he could help me. So I went to see him. He was so welcoming. He treated me as if he had all the time in the world to listen to me and my problems. So I just poured out my heart. I told him all of my troubles. And after I'd finished, well, he was quiet for a while, and then he said, "What do you have that could be sold?" Oh, my heart sank. I had nothing. And I told him so, but he pushed me again. He said, "Think a bit harder. Do you have anything at all in your house?" I thought about my house. The empty shelves. It was bleak and bare. On one table there was a jar with a tiny bit of anointing oil at the bottom. "Elisha," I said, "I have nothing. The house is bare. I just have a small amount of oil in a jar." Elisha was quiet again for a minute, and then he smiled. He looked at me and he actually smiled. "You have some oil in a jar," he said. "That is a wonderful thing. This is what you must do. Go to all your friends and neighbours and ask them to give you all the spare empty jars and pots they have in their house. Then when you've gathered them all, shut the door of your house and pour your oil into the jars, setting aside the jars that are full." Oh, my mind was full of confusion. I didn't really know how to feel. I should have been angry. What he was telling me to do made no sense at all. Did he not hear me say that I just had a tiny bit of oil? But I knew he wasn't making fun of me. I could see that in the way he spoke and the way he looked at me. And my husband, he was a very good judge of character. He trusted Elisha completely. So I decided I would too. I would do what he said, no matter what others thought of how foolish it seemed. Actually, people were very kind. Josh and Daniel and I went round all the neighbours asking for their jars. Well, they knew I was in desperate state, and I suppose they felt sorry for me. But they were very generous with their jars, and some even shared a little food with me and the boys. And by the time we'd finished collecting, my little house was full of them. Josh and Daniel wanted to build things with them, but I said no, we mustn't break any. I shut the door and I looked at them all. Then I looked at my jar of oil. There was so little in it. The more I looked at it, the smaller the amount of oil seemed to be. How could the prophet tell me to fill up the empty jars with that? But I could see my husband's face in my mind. It was as if Obadiah was saying to me, trust him. So I picked up my jar with a little bit of oil and started to pour it in one of the empty jars. It trickled out slowly at first, but then it seemed to speed up, and before long it was halfway up the jar, and still it came, until the jar was full. "How did you do that?" cried Daniel. "Mother, you're amazing." "Oh, I don't think it's me," I said. Josh just gaped, his mouth wide open. "Give me another one, Josh," I said. He pushed one in front of me, still with his mouth wide open. And I kept pouring the oil from my jar. And then the second jar filled up, and then the third. The oil just kept coming. The room was beginning to smell wonderful. My hand was shaking a bit with the wonder of it all, but I didn't spill a drop. And the boys, they were really excited now. They brought me more and more jars, and each one filled up to the brim as I kept pouring. We were all laughing now. This was the most exciting, ridiculous day ever. It took a while to fill all the jars. My neighbours had been so generous. But in due course, we got to the last empty jar, and I poured the oil in. And then, well, the most amazing thing happened. As it reached the brim of the last jar, the oil in my jar ran out. I fell to my knees, and I thanked God in heaven. And then Daniel and Josh and I, we just hugged each other. We all knew what this meant. This was beautiful anointing oil. It would bring in a lot of money. I needed to thank the prophet, so we all went to see him, and I let the boys tell him what had happened, and Elisha, well, he laughed with joy as he saw their excitement. "Now," he said, "go and sell your oil. Sell it all and live without fear." And so this is what we've done. The horrible man was paid back, and he's now completely out of our lives. My boys are with me forever. Well, until they find themselves some lovely wives anyway. And I don't think that will be for a long time.